Okay, so everybody, I'm gonna do this once a week where I basically look up serial killers and I read them their case to you. I would like you guys to comment if there is any that you guys would like me to actually do, or if there's something that you think I should do, because I'm into this stuff. I think every woman at some point is interested in this stuff because we are interested about how people think. And so I picked with someone that I don't know if you guys know him. His name was Gary Ridgway. We also know him as the Green River Killer. So we are going to talk about this and get into it, shall we? Throughout the 1980s and 90s, Gary Ridgway prowled Washington as the Green River Killer, hunting for vulnerable women to rape and murder until he was arrested in 2001. This is Gary, also known as the Green River Killer. So, he took more victims than Jeffrey Dahmer, Son of Sam, and BTK. So if you guys know who those guys are, then you guys know that this guy was woohoo. Okay, it says from 1982 to 1998, Gary Ridgway terrorized Washington state as the Green River Killer. He murdered at least 49 women, but the real number could be as high as 71. If true, this would make him one of the most prolific serial killers in American history, and one of the most brutal. From bragging about his choking ability to explaining the cold-blooded efficiency of performing necrophilia on a victim's corpse instead of finding a new victim to rape and kill, Gary Ridgway's story was nothing short of chilling. While the Green River Killer may not be as infamous as other serial killers like Ted Bundy, he took far more victims than Bundy ever did. In fact, by the time Bundy had already been captured in the mid-1980s, authorities were actively seeking his help in catching Ridgway, who at that point was still at large. In a movie straight out of The Silence of the Lambs, investigators used Bundy's inside knowledge of serial killing and his familiarity with Washington state to help them form a profile of the Green River Killer. This is the gruesome story of Green River Killer Gary Ridgway. Okay. Born on February 18, 1949 in Salt Lake City, Utah, Gary Ridgway had a seemingly happy and normal childhood. But then at age 16, he stabbed a 6-year-old boy just to see how stabbing worked. Ridgway later told a psychologist that he was interested in stabbing because he was struggling with being sexually attracted to his own mother and wanted to kill her because of it. He also confessed that he had a bedwetting problem into his early teens, and that he had clear recollections of his mom washing his genitals after he went to bed. Some experts think that this may have been part of a larger pattern of inappropriate behavior on the part of Ridgway's mother, and while she was ultimately spared from Ridgway's killing spree, some believe that his crimes may have amounted to a case of displaced matricide, and that he was unconsciously killing his mother over and over again. Despite attacking the young boy, Ridgway was never arrested for the crime after this event. Ridgway put up a normal front, but secretly began stalking women in his neighborhood who had previously rejected him. So this was him in 1982, before he was identified as the killer. Gary Ridgway graduated high school at the age of 20 and served in the U.S. Navy for 2 years in Vietnam. While there, he frequently sought the services of prostitutes and even contracted a sexual transmitted disease for the second time, which reportedly enraged him. After serving, Ridgway decided to settle down in the Seattle area. He had married a woman named Claudia Barrows shortly before joining the military, but divorced her after discovering that she had been unfaithful to him while he was deployed. In Seattle, Ridgway got a job painting trucks, which he held for about 3 decades, and even remarried twice. First to Marcella Winslow in 1973, with whom he had a son, and then to Judith Mawson in 1988. During his second marriage to Marcia Winslow, Ridgway became somewhat of a religious fanatic, even going door to door to read the Bible to his neighbors. According to Winslow, this drastic shift startled her, and it got even worse when Ridgway insisted that she follow the strict teachings of their church pastor. However, Winslow claimed that the worst part of their marriage was not the religious fanaticism or even the sex Ridgway demanded from her multiple times a day, but the role Ridgway's mother played in their relationship. According to her, Ridgway's mother had the last say in their relationship, even going so far as to control the couple's finances. The couple ultimately divorced 8 years into their marriage. Despite having a family and a newfound relationship with religion, Ridgway started having encounters with the law, during which he got arrested for allegedly choking a sex worker and for solicitation while living in Seattle. As the years went on, his crimes escalated from there. It's widely believed that he first began his killing spree in 1982, starting with a 16-year-old girl who had run away from her foster home. This initial crime began a nearly 20-year murder spree that would claim dozens of lives. So this is Gary Ridgway's victim, Marcia Chapman. She was found on 1982 on August 15th. Gary Ridgway often preyed on vulnerable runaways. He also targeted sex workers, whom he picked up at truck stops and dive bars along Highway 99, outside Seattle. After luring his victims into his car, he'd often gain their trust by showing them photos of his son, then engage in sexual activity with them, before strangling them to death, sometimes in the middle of intercourse. The Green River Killer would then dump their bodies in wooded areas around the Green River, which led to his chilling nickname. Ridgway would also purposely contaminate the crime scenes with gum and cigarette butts, since he didn't smoke or chew gum to throw authorities off. Ridgway would later admit to the macabre fact that he would take his wives to the dump sites for picnics and outdoor sex. Occasionally, he would dump the body in one place, leave it for a time, then transport it to another location to create a false trail. At least 2 of his victims were transported as far away as Portland. Despite going to lengths to hide his crimes, Ridgway still fell under the radar of law enforcement due to his previous run-ins with the law. In the early 1980s, police questioned Ridgway after a sex worker accused him of choking her during sex near the SeaTac airport, an area where some of the victims had been discarded. Additionally, police caught Ridgway with a sex worker named Kelly McGinnis, one of the serial killer's victims. So this is Cynthia Hins. She is a victim, and she died on the 11th, 1982. For these reasons, police listed Ridgway as a suspect and made him take a polygraph test, which he passed. The lack of physical evidence tying Ridgway to any of the killings led police to focus on other suspects, and Ridgway took some time off from his killing spree as a result of the pressure. But Ridgway's run-ins with the police did not deter him from hunting again. Despite reportedly fighting martial happiness with Judith Mawson, Ridgway continued killing. By the end of his murder spree, the Green River Killer had murdered a confirmed 49 women, though he ended up confessing to 71 total murders, making him one of the most prolific serial killers in history. Gary Ridgway once said, "I killed so many women, I have a hard time keeping them straight." This is Carol Christensen. She became the 26th victim, and she was disappeared on May 30th, 1983. When the bodies first started appearing, the Kings County Sheriff's Office formed the Green River Task Force, hoping to discover the person responsible, and they got help from an unlikely source. 2 members of the Green River Killer Task Force were Robert Keppel and Dave Richert. They periodically interviewed psychologists and criminologists, hoping to gain insight into the motives behind the killer's movements. Eventually, in 1984, their interviews led them to the infamous Ted Bundy. He helped find the Green River Killer. According to Keppel, Bundy actually volunteered himself to take part in the investigation. Keppel described receiving the shocking request from a detective of the Seattle Police Department. It was a letter from a wannabe consultant and the most unlikely person I ever expected to be of assistance in the Green River murders. The letter came from a cell on death row in Florida. The sender was Theodore Robert Bundy. I was stunned. By that point, Bundy had already been imprisoned for several years for murder, rape, burglary, and necrophilia, and at that time he was awaiting his execution, which would ultimately come in 1989. Having deplorable but valuable first-hand experience with the same kinds of killings that had been happening in the Green River area, Bundy proved to be an asset to the case. He became a regular interviewee of Keppel and Richard, and offered his unfiltered opinion of the psychology of the still active Green River Killer, as well as his motivations and behavior. According to Richard, Ted Bundy also shared several things in common with Gary Ridgway, especially in regard to mindset. First off, there's no remorse. He doesn't have any feelings toward anybody, his family included, and that's what I saw in Bundy and what I saw in Ridgway. As Richard explained in an interview with the New York Times, like Mr. Bundy, Mr. Ridgway craved attention and control and was prideful when discussing his killings. When detectives presented him with an unsolved murder to see if he would confess it, he told them, "Why, if it isn't mine, because I have pride in what I do, I don't want to take it from anybody else." During one interview session, Bundy reportedly suggested that the Green River Killer was most likely revisiting his dump sites to perform necrophilia on the corpses. He advised the investigators that if they found a fresh grave, they should stake it out and wait for the killer to return. Bundy's theory turned out to be absolutely correct, and the police were able to use them to collect samples and provide evidence for an arrest warrant. However, it took police until 2001 to finally arrest Gary Ridgway. So, Ridgway was sentenced to life in prison in 2003. In 2001, Gary Ridgway was arrested on suspicions of murdering 4 women, and his DNA was later linked to them. Forensic testing later revealed that the same spray paint Ridgway used at work during his crime spree was present at other crime scenes and added those murders to the list of charges. His wife, Judith Mawson, who didn't know about his crimes as the Green River Killer until after he was arrested, was absolutely stunned when she heard about his long history of rape, murder, and necrophilia. As Mawson put it, Ridgway was the perfect husband, and he had always treated her like a newlywed. Even after they'd been together for 17 years, in reality, Ridgway later confessed he had been tempted to kill Mawson and only passed because it might have increased his chances of getting caught. Still, he claimed that he truly loved Mawson, and according to the timeline of his known murders, his kill rate went down after they had gotten married. Mawson, who filed for divorce after his confessions, later said that she felt like she had saved lives by being his wife and making him happy. By the time of his trial, Gary Ridgway was facing 48 murder charges in exchange for life imprisonment instead of the death penalty. The Green River Killer agreed to provide the locations of his victims' remains. After his cooperation, he was given 48 life sentences that would be served consecutively. Then 10 years was added to each sentence for the crime of tampering with evidence. This would increase his overall prison term by 480 additional years. When his trial was over, Gary Ridgway had confessed to more confirmed murders than any other serial killer in America. At that point, more than Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, and BTK combined, and he claimed that murdering young women was his real career. And despite being locked away for good, Ridgway and his crimes continue to haunt the police. This was 2001, Green River Killer. Let's see. In 2011, a 49th body was found that was linked to Ridgway, which added yet another life sentence to his prison term. 12 years later, in December 2023 and January 2024, 2 sets of remains linked to the Green River Killer were finally identified as 15-year-old Lori Ann Ratspointnick and 16-year-old Tammy Lilas. Ridgway's reputation has also been in popular culture, appearing in books like Twilight and Jodi Picoult's House Rules. While the title of the most prolific serial killer in the United States has since been taken by Samuel Little, who killed up to 93 women between 1970 and 2005, there's no question that Ridgway remains one of the worst murderers in modern American history. But unlike so many other of America's history's most infamous serial killers, Gary Ridgway is still alive today. The Green River Killer is currently serving out his life sentences at the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla, Washington. Ridgway is expected to spend the rest of his life behind bars. I really hope you guys enjoyed that. I enjoyed reading that. I already know about Gary Ridgway, though, of course. I listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff, and so if you guys never knew about that case, now you guys know that he had more than Ted Bundy, more than what's his name? Jeffrey Dahmer, and more than BTK. If you guys are interested in looking this, he is known as the Green River Killer. You could do your own research if you would like. That's your decision. Comment down below if you guys thought this was good. I'm sorry if I read fast. I get hyper when I read, especially when I read stuff like this. So if you have to, go ahead and pause the video or look this up yourself if you want to read it instead of having my fast voice read it to you. But let me know next week if I should do another one of these and what killer I should do. Okay, thank you.